A poem written in the form of a speech of an individual character is known as dramatic monologue. Sinking star means here he may be talking about his death or his old age. Welcome dear students. I am Mrs. Reena, lecturer, Department of English at Vidhyaashram First Grade College, MYSURU. Today, in this session, we are going to discuss the poem Ulysses prescribed by the University of MYSURU for 2nd Sem B.B.A student. In the previous introduction class, I told you that whenever you read a poem, you have to consider certain contexts. That is, you have to go through the introduction of the poet, then history of the poem, analysis or summary of the poem, theme of the poem. Now let's begin this poem with the introduction to the poet. So, poet Alfred Lord Tennyson was born on 6th August 1809 and he lived up to 6th October 1892. Alfred Tennyson was one of the most popular British poets. Tennyson was appointed as Poet Laureate after the death of William Wordsworth in the year 1850, and he held this position until his own death in the year 1892. So Tennyson's early poetry, with its medievalism and powerful visual imagery, was a major influence. And he is the 9th most frequently quoted writer in the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations. Next, let's look into some of his notable works. The popular poems of Tennyson include Mariana, The Dying Swan, The Lotus Eaters, The Lady of Shalott, The Two Voices, Ulysses, The Princess, The Eagle, Ring Out Wild Bells, and The Charge of the Light Brigade. Tennyson published his first collection, Poems Chiefly Lyrical, in the year 1830. Queen Victoria also became his passionate admirer, specifically because of his work in memoriam AAH. Have a look at the introduction to the poet. Now let's begin to analyze the poem. Ulysses is a poem written in the year 1833 and it was published in the year 1842. And it was published in his well-received 2nd volume of poetry. And it is a popular example of the dramatic monologue. What do you mean by dramatic monologue? A poem written in the form of a speech of an individual character is known as dramatic monologue. And this poem, Ulysses, is written in the form of blank verse. So facing old age, mythical hero Ulysses describes his discontent and restlessness upon returning to his kingdom, that is Ithaca, after his far-ranging travel. So, despite of his union with his family members, he is not happy with that. He yearns to explore more. He wanted to go out for another journey. Most critics, however, find that Tennyson's Ulysses recalls Dante's Ulysses. Next, let's see into the background of the poem. Ulysses is the Latinized version of the Greek mythological hero Odysseus. king of Ithaca, first recorded in Homer's classic poems, the Iliad and Odyssey. It tells of Odysseus' 10-year journey home following the Trojan War. Then Tennyson loved the Greek myths. Tennyson based his poem on one of his closest friend, Arthur Hallam, who passed away. The poem begins with Ulysses complaining about his idle life as a king. Ulysses feels that he is stuck here with the people who do not know his greatness. He presents himself in a monologue and he cries out boldly that, saying that there is merely no progress in a life of an idle king. Then he wishes to continue. He says he wishes to continue his travel and make most of his life. He wants to live this life till his last breath. He wants to keep on exploring new things. He doesn't want to stay stagnant in a place and he doesn't want to waste his time. He wanted to explore more and more in his life. As he insists his feeling to explore more and more, he recalls whatever happened in his previous exploration. That is, he recalls of the great life which is surrounded with joys and sufferings. So he uses, through scudding drifts the rainy hates. Okay, he uses these words to speak about his coming out of the storms and obstacles over the sea. Then Ulysses says about his own travel and also about the knowledge which he gained through it. He says that he got the name and the fame through his adventure. Then again he recalls some other things which he had underwent during his previous adventure or exploration. That is, he has also come into contact with many cities and manners of them, climates, governments and councils. So through this he had traveled through many cities and he has watched the manners of that cities. He saw the climate, different climates of different cities, then the government of the ruling government of that cities, councils, etc. So through that he has gained lot of knowledge. Then he says he is respected as he journeyed most parts of the world. He says that he is respected as he journeyed through most parts of the world. After that, he thinks about the war experiences he has in his life. He remembers his war participation on plains of Troy in Trojan War. So even though he affirms that he had traveled into many places and he has seen many things in the world, here he speaks again about his untraveled world. So here Ulysses speaks about the monotonic life which he is spending in his kingdom Ithaca. So Ulysses speaks of his wastage of time in Ithaca, where he could not satisfy the adventurous life or where he could not satisfy the adventure journey of life. He says he moves often and he does not want to stay in one place. He is willing to keep on moving from one place to another place. When he shows a hurry, we can also think that even our life is blessed with multiple lifetimes. Time will be insufficient to touch all the places of the world. Ulysses shows his hurry to explore new things in his life. Through these words, we can say that even our life is blessed with lot of opportunities, but the time will be insufficient, so that we will not be able to touch all the parts of the world. These lines indicates the tiredness of monotonic life of Ulysses in Ithaca. Ulysses speaks that he wants to follow knowledge like sinking star. Ulysses speaks that he wants to follow knowledge like sinking star. So sinking star, here it may give two meanings here. Sinking star means here he may be talking about his death or his old age. And another one is here he may be talking about the knowledge which he wants to catch before he misses that. Here Ulysses is introducing his son to us, that is his son Telemachus to us. He wanted his son to rule the kingdom and he wanted him to take care of his kingdom. So Ulysses explains about his son here. Ulysses declared that he is giving the authority on Ithaca to his son Telemachus. So he describes his son Telemachus' efficiency in ruling. Then he declares that his son is spotless in character. Again, Ulysses describes his character and his ability to administer the people with patience. Okay. Then he opines his son will adore the household gods. So here you can see that Ulysses trusts his son very much and he knows that he is capable of taking care of the people of Ithaca. So he gives the authority to Telemachus. So Ulysses set for next adventure. Okay, so as he planned before, he wanted to explore more. He doesn't wanted to stay at Ithaca. So what he did as a king, he gave the authority to his son and he placed the life of the people into the hands of his son, gave the authority, complete authority to him, and he sets for a next exploration or next adventure. So when he came to the port, he remembers his old adventure, hunger mates who have died. So when he sets to the travel journey, he remembers his hunger mates, okay, old adventure, his fellow beings, old fellow beings who have died already. And he recollects his past ever mariners who had worked hard, thought and acted according to him. Then he recollects that they were with him in not only good times but also during his difficulties. So he affirms that many mariners or the mariners who worked with him before in his previous adventure, they all went through lot of hardships along with him. So though they faced lot of hardships, they never turned back of the adventurous life. Next, here he speaks about death. Ulysses speaks about death. Ulysses opines that death is end to all. But before the death engulfs him, he wants to achieve something greater than his previous achievements. Ulysses is the opinion that death is end to all. So before death engulfs him, he wanted to achieve something more than his previous achievements. He remembers that they have fought with gods in Trojan War. And you know that fighting a war is not an easy matter. So here he thinks about, he remembers that he and his fellow being fought with gods in Trojan War. Such achievement is being aspired before his last breath. He says that he is after that war, they are safe and they came back. Now, he is inspired by the fight of that war and he wanted to explore more and more. So that war has given courage to Ulysses and his fellow beings for further adventure. He says to his mariners not to forget that they fought with the gods and they are the same persons who are now going for an adventure. He says that lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. That means, so when they set for a new adventure and when they started the journey for another adventure, it was dark. Okay, it was becoming night. Lights began to twinkle from the rocks. That means they set their journey during night when it was dark. And he also says the moon is appearing. So though it is dark, he gives an optimistic thinking there. He says that though it is dark, the moon is appearing, where the moon is source of light. So he says, thus through these lines, he inculcates confidence. He inculcates confidence among his old warriors to get them ready for fresh knowledge adventure. Now let's see what is the outcome of the journey according to him. So there is two, according to Ulysses, there is two outcomes. One is the destruction. It may be their destruction, and next one is they may reach to a new destination or a very good destination. Ulysses begins to think the outcome of journey in two ways. In his words to the mariners, it is clear that he has a destination. So, without any destination, they have not started. It is clear that they have a destination to explore new things and gain more knowledge on their adventure. So, he says that whirlpools in seas may devour or destroy them. The whirlpools in the seas may devour and destroy them. Or another way is that they may reach a happy isles, okay, or the happy island, which can be assumed as a heaven. So he has an ambition. Another outcome is he has an ambition to meet his co-warrior in War of Trojan. The warrior he wants to meet is Achilles. Before moving further, he had an outcome and he says to his mariners that we may get stuck or we may be destroyed by the whirlpools, or we may reach to a new island which seems like heaven. And also another ambition was to meet his friend or meet his co-warrior who fought in Trojan War, that is Achilles. At the end, Ulysses affirms confidence in him and also in his friends. He says that Ulysses in its previous words affirmed that he has destiny and he is towards it. He says that I have a destination and I am towards that. At the same time, he agrees that now they are not strong. So he says that sinking star and he wants to gain more knowledge. So he and his fellow beings, they are not young now, they are old, but that is not a matter for them. So though they are older physically, they are young at heart. So he resumes his flashback that the warriors fought as a single heartbeat and they never turned back. So he is saying his fellow beings to think that, to recall how they fought in their previous wars. They fought like a single heartbeat and they never turned back in their difficulties. Ulysses wants them to have courage and move forward. Later he agrees that they are as they are and time and fate has taken their strength and vigor. So Here he says that they are the same people, same persons like before. They have the attitude of a young man. But the time and fate has changed them, has taken their strength and vigor. He affirms that they are to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. And this last line of the poem, where he says that, so they are the people, Ulysses and his friends will never give up. They are to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. So here there is a message to us also. We should never give up. We have to strive, seek, and we have to find new things in our life. We should have confidence in us, and we have to try to explore new things in our life. Now let's see the theme of Ulysses. The central theme of Ulysses is there is a search for adventure, experience, and meaning which make life worth living. Okay, so according to Ulysses, we should not stay stagnant at place. We have to have an adventurous life. We have to have a lot of experience in our life. And he says that if we live a life like that, it is a meaningless life. Then the poet has used many literary devices in this, like imagery, metaphor, personification, consonance, assonance, alliteration, etc. But now in this class, let us see the two important literary devices which the poet has used in poem Ulysses. So first one is imagery. Imagery is used to make readers perceive things involving their 5 sense organs. Okay. So for example, the thunder and the sunshine and opposed that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me sail beyond the sunset and the baths. So here, so thunder, sunshine and all, when he speaks about the thunder, and imagery means we will involve our senses, sense organs there. So when we hear a thunder, sunshine and all, so our sense organ works. Metaphor. Metaphor is a figure of speech in which an implied comparison is made between different objects. For example, how dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, to rust unburnished. Here, the poet compares himself to a lifeless surface, that he is comparing himself to a iron. Unburnished means unpolished iron which gets rust. If it is not polished properly, it gets rust. So he is comparing himself to the unburnished rust. The tone of Ulysses is reflective, contemplative and hopeful. The tone of Ulysses is reflective, contemplative and hopeful. The speaker has come to a conclusion saying that to live a meaningful life, he has to move on from his domestic situation. So hope you all understood this poem well. You have to go through the summary of this poem. Also, you have to read each and every line carefully, because annotations will be asked from these lines. And some of the expected questions are, how does Lord Tennyson bring out the spirit of adventure in this poem? And who is Telemachus? Then you have to go through the theme of the poem. So in the next class, let's learn about the literary component, punctuation. Thank you. Stay safe and healthy.